The Romulan pirate Captain Corvus stood frozen, eyes locked on the strange appendage dangling between the human male's legs. This had to be the rumored weapon Earth was hiding. Deep in uncharted space, the sleek Romulan vessel hung alongside the battered human cargo ship like a predator toying with wounded prey. Corvus had intercepted the lumbering Earth freighter on a routine piracy run, but whispers of a secret human weapon had reached even the fringes of the galaxy. Now, that weapon stood exposed before her on the bridge of the captured ship. Corvus's boarding party had swiftly overwhelmed the human crew, securing vital systems and rounding up prisoners. During the sweep, Junior Officer Vex dragged a struggling human male from a maintenance shaft. "Captain, I found this one hiding," Vex reported, shoving the man forward. Corvus appraised the prisoner. Tall, muscular build, short brown hair, unremarkable save for the determined set of his jaw. His name tag read, Terry Holmes, Engineer. "Where is the weapon?" Corvus demanded of the human captain. "We carry no weapons," he insisted. "We're a civilian transport." Corvus's ridge-lined brow furrowed. The myth spoke of a biological weapon, something hidden on their bodies. Her gaze fell to the engineer's lower half. "You," she snapped at Terry, "remove your garments." Terry's eyes widened. "What? No!" Corvus leveled her disruptor at a female crew member. "Strip, or she dies." Jaw clenched, Terry slowly peeled off his uniform. The Romulans watched, curiosity warring with revulsion at the alien physiology. When Terry's undergarments dropped, gasps echoed across the bridge. Corvus stared at the fleshy protrusion, mind racing. This had to be it, some kind of bioweapon the humans had engineered. Nothing in nature could explain such a bizarre appendage. "Secure the prisoner and prepare him for transport," she ordered. "We're taking him to Romulus for study." As Romulan guards hauled Terry away, Corvus turned to the human captain. "Your vessel and crew are now property of the Romulan Star Empire." Within minutes, the pirates were stripping the cargo ship of valuables. Terry found himself locked in a holding cell aboard the Romulan vessel, facing an uncertain fate. As the ship warped toward Romulan space, Corvus opened a channel to High Command. "This is Captain Corvus. We've captured a human possessing some form of biological weapon, requesting immediate return to Romulus for full investigation." The response was swift. "Understood, Captain. Return at once. We'll have a team ready to examine the prisoner and this weapon upon your arrival." Corvus cut the transmission, a mix of pride and unease churning in her gut. She'd uncovered a vital military secret, or made a grave error. Either way, the next few days would change the course of the war with Earth. And for Terry Holmes, they would be a struggle for survival. As the Romulan vessel cut through space towards Romulus, Corvus paced the bridge, her mind churning with possibilities. The human's strange appendage nagged at her thoughts. She needed more information before presenting her findings to High Command. "Lieutenant," she barked, "escort the human prisoner to medical bay. I want Dr. Valeris to conduct a thorough examination." Terry Holmes stumbled as the Romulan guards shoved him into the sterile confines of the medical bay. The air hummed with unfamiliar technology, and the acrid smell of disinfectant filled his nostrils. His eyes darted around, searching for anything he could use as a weapon or means of escape. A stern-faced Romulan woman with piercing green eyes approached, her white coat a stark contrast to the dark uniforms of the guards. "I am Dr. Valeris," she stated, her voice clipped and professional. "You will comply with all tests and examinations." Terry tightened fists but remained silent as Dr. Valeris began her analysis. She ran various scanners over his body, her brow furrowing as she studied the results. With each passing moment, her initial skepticism gave way to fascination. "Remarkable," she murmured, almost to herself. "Your physiology is intriguing." As the doctor's gloved hands moved over his skin, Terry noticed a shift in her demeanor. Her touch lingered, her eyes roaming his form with growing interest. He felt exposed, vulnerable, but also strangely empowered by her reaction. Suddenly the ship lurched, nearly knocking them both off balance. The overhead lights flickered as Captain Corvus's voice crackled over the intercom. "Attention all crew. We've received new orders from High Command. Set course for the outpost on Glacius III immediately. Dr. Valeris frowned, clearly displeased by the interruption. As she turned to check a console, Terry saw his chance. In one fluid motion, he grabbed a nearby medical instrument and swung it at the doctor's head. She crumpled to the floor, unconscious but breathing. Heart pounding, Terry slipped out of the medical bay. He navigated the alien corridors, relying on his engineer's instincts to make sense of the ship's layout. After a few tense minutes, he located the holding cells where his fellow crew members were detained. "Marcus!" he hissed, spotting his friend and fellow engineer through the force field. "Stand back!" Using the stolen medical tool, Terry managed to short-circuit the cell's control panel. The force field flickered and died, allowing Marcus to step free. "Terry, you magnificent bastard!" Marcus grinned, clapping him on the shoulder. "What's the plan?" "We need to get to a shuttle," Terry replied, already moving down the corridor. "This way." The two men crept through the ship, narrowly avoiding Romulan patrols. As they neared the shuttle bay, a voice rang out behind them. "Halt, humans!" They turned to see Lieutenant Karras leading a group of armed guards. Terry and Marcus exchanged a quick glance before diving behind a nearby console. "Any bright ideas?" Marcus asked as disruptor fire scorched the wall above their heads. Terry's eyes darted around the room, his engineer's mind racing. "See those plasma conduits? If we can rupture them, it might buy us some time." As Marcus nodded in agreement, the ship suddenly lurched again. The artificial gravity failed, plunging the entire bay into weightlessness. Romulans and humans alike flailed in the zero-G environment, grasping for handholds. "Now's our chance," Terry shouted, pushing off the floor towards the nearest shuttle. They tumbled through the air, dodging floating debris and confused Romulans. Marcus reached the shuttle first, yanking open the hatch and pulling himself inside. Terry was seconds behind him when he heard a familiar voice. "Wait!" He turned to see Dr. Valeris floating towards them, her green eyes wide with, was that fear? Desperation? In a split-second decision, Terry reached out and grabbed her arm, pulling her into the shuttle just as the bay doors began to close. Marcus wasted no time, his fingers flying over the shuttle's controls. With a roar of engines, they blasted out of the bay and into open space. "What the hell, Terry?" Marcus yelled, glancing back at the Romulan doctor. "Why'd you bring her?" Before Terry could respond, the shuttle rocked violently. Through the view screen, they saw Corvus's ship turning to pursue them. "We need to lose them," Terry said, strapping himself into the co-pilot's seat. "Any ideas?" Marcus grinned, a wild look in his eyes. "That moon looks pretty nasty. Think we can lose them in the atmosphere?" As they plunged towards the icy surface of Glacius III, Terry turned to Dr. Valeris, who sat rigid in her seat, hands clutching the chairs. "Why did you come with us?" he asked, his voice barely audible over the roar of the shuttle entering the moon's turbulent atmosphere. Valeris met his gaze, her expression a mix of fear and something else. Curiosity? Attraction? I want to understand," she said softly. "Your people, your culture. You." The shuttle shuddered violently, cutting off any further conversation. Ice crystals formed on the monitor as they descended through thick, roiling clouds. Alarms blared as the small craft struggled against the harsh conditions. "Brace for impact," Marcus shouted as the ground rushed up to meet them. With a bone-jarring crash, the shuttle slammed into the icy surface, skidding across the frozen landscape before finally coming to rest in a drift of powdery snow. For a moment, all was silent, except for the hiss of escaping atmosphere and the groans of stressed metal. Terry unstrapped himself, checking on Marcus and Dr. Valeris. Both were shaken but unharmed. As they gathered their wits, a distant rumble caught their attention. Through the cracked view screen, they saw the looming shape of Corvus's ship descending through the stormy sky. "We need to move," Terry said, already searching for emergency supplies. "It won't take them long to find us in this." As they prepared to venture out into the alien landscape, Terry caught Dr. Valeris watching him intently. He realized that their escape was just the beginning of a much stranger journey, one that might bridge the gap between their two species in ways he never imagined. Bundled in thermal gear, The unlikely trio stepped out onto the icy surface of Glacius III. Wind howled around them, driving needle-sharp ice crystals into any exposed skin. In the distance, the lights of Corvus's landed ship pierced the gloom like predatory eyes. "There!" Marcus shouted over the wind, pointing to a dark opening in a nearby ice formation. "Shelter!" As they stumbled towards the cave, Terry's mind raced with questions. How would they survive this frozen hell? Could they trust Dr. Valeris? And what new dangers awaited them in the unforgiving alien night? The howling wind subsided as the first rays of dawn pierced the icy cavern. Terry, Marcus, and Dr. Valeris stirred from their fitful slumber, their bodies stiff and aching from the cold. As they emerged from their makeshift shelter, the harsh reality of their situation set in. "We can't stay here," Terry said, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. "We need to find a better refuge." Dr. Valeris nodded, her green eyes scanning the horizon. "There's an automated research station nearby. It should have supplies and communication equipment." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "And how do you know that?" "Standard Romulan protocol," she replied, her voice tinged with a hint of defensiveness. "All moons with potential strategic value have outposts." Terry intervened before tensions could escalate. "It's our best shot. Lead the way, Doctor." They set out across the frozen landscape, their boots crunching through the icy crust. The terrain was treacherous, with hidden crevasses and unstable ice formations, threatening to swallow them whole. Terry's engineer's mind worked overtime, devising solutions to each obstacle they encountered. When faced with a particularly wide crevasse, Terry fashioned a makeshift bridge using their thermal blankets and pieces of ice. As they carefully crossed, Dr. Valeris couldn't help but admire his ingenuity. "Impressive," she murmured, her eyes meeting Terry's for a moment longer than necessary. Hours into their journey, they crested a ridge and spotted the research station in the distance. Its sleek, angular design stood out against the barren landscape. "Wait," Marcus hissed, pulling them down behind an ice formation. "Look." Through the swirling snow, they could make out several figures moving around the station's entrance. Romulan scientists, their green uniforms a stark contrast to the white surroundings. "So much for abandoned," Terry muttered. They observed the station, looking for any opportunity to approach undetected. As they watched, they overheard snippets of conversation carried on the wind. "Dr. Salek, the genetic sequencing is complete," one scientist called out. An older Romulan emerged from the station, his bearing radiating authority. "Excellent! This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for." Dr. Valeris leaned in close to Terry, her breath warm against his ear. "They're discussing interspecies genetic compatibility. It's fascinating." Terry turned to her, suddenly aware of their proximity. "What do you mean?" Her eyes glinted with excitement. "The potential for Romulan-human hybridization. It's theoretically possible, given our similar genetic structures." The implications of her words hung in the air between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. Marcus cleared his throat, breaking the moment. "As riveting as this science talk is, we need a plan. I say we split up." Terry and Dr. Valeris turned to him, questioning. "Look," Marcus continued, "I'll create a diversion. Draw them away from the main facility. You two can sneak in and access the communication systems." Despite the risks, they agreed it was their best option. Marcus set off towards the station's external power generators, while Terry and Dr. Valeris waited for their opportunity. The silence between them was filled with tension, both from the danger of their situation and the growing attraction neither could deny. Finally, alarms blared from the station, and they watched as the Romulan scientists rushed to investigate. "Now," Terry whispered, and they sprinted towards the entrance. Inside the station was a maze of corridors and laboratories. Dr. Valeris led the way, her familiarity with Romulan design guiding them to the central control room. As she worked to establish a secure communication channel, Terry kept watch. Suddenly, a transmission crackled to life on one of the monitors. Captain Corvus's face appeared, addressing Dr. Salek. "Be on high alert," Corvus ordered. 2 human prisoners and a Romulan defector have escaped. They must be recaptured at all costs." Terry and Dr. Valeris exchanged alarmed glances. Their window of opportunity was rapidly closing. We need to hurry, Terry urged, moving to assist her with the communications array. As they worked side by side, the air between them grew charged. Dr. Valeris turned to Terry, her expression conflicted. Terry, I want to continue my research on human-Romulan relations, she said, her voice low and intense. There's so much we could learn from each other. Terry's hand paused over the controls. Valeris, I don't know what to say. My duty, my life, they're back on Earth. Before she could respond, the communication link crackled to life. A Federation insignia appeared on the screen, and a voice came through. This is the USS Horizon. We're receiving your transmission. Terry leaned in, his heart racing. This is Terry Holmes, engineer from the Earth freighter Astral Wind. We're stranded on the moon Glacius 3 and in need of immediate evacuation. Just as the officer on the other end began to respond, the door to the control room burst open. Marcus stumbled in, his face flushed with exertion and fear. They're here, he gasped. Corvus and his search party. They've reached the station. The trio froze, the reality of their situation crashing down upon them. They were trapped inside the facility, with Romulan forces closing in from all sides. The faint sound of boots on metal floors echoed through the corridors, growing louder with each passing second. Terry looked at Dr. Valeris, then at Marcus. The decision they made in the next few moments would determine not just their fate, but potentially the future of human-Romulan relations. As Corvus's voice rang out, ordering them to surrender, Terry's mind raced through their limited options. The control room suddenly felt much smaller, the walls closing in as the sound of approaching Romulans grew louder. Terry, Marcus, and Dr. Valeris exchanged tense glances, each aware that their next move could be their last. The decision they made in the next few moments would determine not just their fate, but potentially the future of human-Romulan relations. Terry's eyes darted between the console and his companions. We need to buy time, he whispered urgently. His mind raced, analyzing every system and component in the facility. Suddenly, an idea sparked. Marcus, help me access the environmental controls, Terry said, his fingers flying over the console. Valeris, what do you know about the research being conducted here? As Marcus moved to assist, Dr. Valeris hesitated for a moment before speaking. There's an experimental cloaking device in development. It's designed to mask all forms of energy signatures, not just visual. Terry's eyes widened. That could be our ticket out of here. Can you access the research database? Valeris nodded, her fingers dancing across another console. The sound of boots grew louder, accompanied by Corvus's barked orders. Terry focused on the environmental systems, reconfiguring them with lightning speed. Marcus, I need you to set up some defenses. Anything you can find, equipment, furniture, whatever. We need to slow them down. Marcus nodded grimly and began dragging chairs and tables to barricade the door. He quickly scanned the room for anything that could be used as a weapon or trap. As Terry worked, the facility's systems began to respond. Sudden temperature fluctuations rippled through the corridors. Gravity plating malfunctioned, creating pockets of increased and decreased gravity throughout the station. The sounds of confusion and chaos erupted from beyond the control room. Shouts of surprise and frustration echoed as Romulan soldiers found themselves either pinned to the floor or floating helplessly. It's working, Marcus said, a hint of awe in his voice, but it won't hold them for long. Valeris, any luck with that cloaking device? Terry asked, sweat beading on his forehead as he continued to manipulate the station's systems. I've found it, she replied, her voice tense with concentration. It's in a research lab 2 levels down. But Terry, there's a problem. The device requires a significant power source to operate. Terry's mind raced through possibilities. The shuttle, he said suddenly. If we can get back to our crash site, we might be able to use the power core from the shuttle to fuel the device. A loud bang on the door made them all jump. Marcus's makeshift barricade shuddered but held. We're out of time, Marcus growled. We need to move. Now! Terry nodded, making a few final adjustments to the environmental controls. This should keep them busy for a while. Let's go. They moved swiftly through the facility, navigating the chaos Terry had created. Romulan soldiers stumbled in their path, disoriented by the wildly fluctuating environment. In one corridor, they passed a group of Romulans floating helplessly near the ceiling, their weapons drifting just out of reach. They reached the research lab and quickly located the experimental cloaking device. It was smaller than Terry had expected, barely larger than a standard communicator. "How do we activate it?" Marcus asked, eyeing the door nervously. "We can't, not yet," Valeris explained. "Without a proper power source, it's useless." A distant explosion rocked the facility. Corvus's forces were adapting, pushing through Terry's obstacles. "We need to get back to the shuttle," Terry said. "It's our only chance." They made their way to a rear exit, blasting through the door with a phaser Marcus had acquired. The icy wind of Glacius III hit them like a physical blow as they emerged onto the moon's surface. "There!" Valeris pointed to a barely visible path in the snow, marking their earlier trek from the crash site. They set off, battling against the extreme cold and howling winds. The sound of pursuit grew behind them. Corvus and his elite team had broken free of the facility's defenses and were gaining ground quickly. The crash site came into view, the shuttle a dark smudge against the white landscape. Terry and Marcus immediately began working on the power core, their hands clumsy with cold and urgency. Valeris stood watch, the cloaking device clutched in her hands. Her eyes widened as she spotted movement on the ridge behind them. "They're coming!" Terry's fingers burned with cold as he disconnected the final coupling. "Got it!" he shouted over the wind, hefting the power core. Weapons fire sizzled past them, melting the snow where they had stood moments before. Corvus's voice carried on the wind, ordering his team to surround them. With trembling hands, Valeris connected the cloaking device to the power core. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then with a soft hum, the device activated. A shimmering field enveloped them, bending light and energy around their small group. Corvus and his team arrived at the crash site, their expressions a mix of confusion and frustration as they searched for their suddenly vanished quarry. Terry, Marcus, and Valeris hardly dared to breathe as they slowly, silently began to move away from the crash site. The cloaking field held, but Terry could see the power core's charge depleting rapidly. "The extreme cold?" Valeris whispered. "It's draining the power faster than anticipated." They needed to find a way off the moon, and fast. Their options were limited. Attempt to steal a shuttle from the research station, try to commandeer Corvus's ship, or find another means of escape on this desolate, icy world. As they weighed their choices, Terry found his gaze drawn to Valeris. The shared danger and their combined ingenuity had forged a connection between them, one that both thrilled and terrified him. He knew that pursuing any kind of future with her would mean leaving behind everything he knew. Their deliberation was cut short as Marcus suddenly stopped, his eyes fixed on something in the distance. "What is that?" he breathed. Through the swirling snow, barely visible against the white landscape, they could make out what appeared to be an entrance, a dark, gaping maw in the side of a nearby ice formation. It was clearly not natural, its edges too precise, its shape too regular. "An alien structure," Valeris said, her voice filled with wonder. "But whose?" As they stood there, caught between the pursuing Romulans and this unexpected discovery, the cloaking field flickered ominously. Their time was running out. Terry looked from the mysterious entrance to his companions, then back to where Corvus and his team were still searching. They had a decision to make, and quickly. The unknown dangers of the alien structure weighed against the very real threat of Corvus and the heavily guarded research station. With the cloaking field weakening by the second and their options dwindling, Terry knew their next choice could well determine not just their own fates, but potentially uncover secrets that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Terry's gaze darted between the mysterious entrance and his companions, weighing their dwindling options. The cloaking field flickered ominously, a stark reminder of their rapidly diminishing time. "We need to take our chances with that structure," Terry decided, his voice barely audible above the howling wind. "It's our only shot." Without waiting for a response, he began trudging through the snow towards the alien entrance. Marcus and Dr. Valeris followed close behind, their footsteps muffled by the thick blanket of white beneath them. As they approached the gaping maw in the ice formation, the true scale of the entrance became apparent. It towered above them, its edges unnaturally smooth and precise. The darkness within seemed to swallow all light, offering no hint of what lay beyond. Terry activated the small light on his wrist communicator, casting a feeble glow into the void. "Stay close," he warned, stepping into the unknown. The moment they crossed the threshold, the howling wind ceased abruptly, replaced by an eerie silence. Their footsteps echoed off unseen walls, the sound seeming to stretch into infinity. Suddenly, the cloaking field sputtered and died, leaving them exposed. Terry's heart raced as he realized their vulnerability. "Move!" he hissed, urging his companions deeper into the structure. As they hurried forward, the alien facility began to come alive around them. Soft blue lights flickered to life along the walls, illuminating a vast network of corridors and chambers. The architecture was like nothing Terry had ever seen. Smooth, organic curves blended seamlessly with sharp geometric patterns. "This technology," Dr. Valeris breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's far beyond anything in the Federation or Romulan Empire." They rounded a corner and found themselves in a cavernous space that took their breath away. Before them stretched a hangar filled with sleek, otherworldly spacecraft. The vessels were small, clearly designed for a handful of occupants, their hulls gleaming with an iridescent sheen that seemed to shift colors as they moved. Terry approached the nearest ship, his engineer's mind already racing to understand its systems. He ran his hand along the smooth surface, feeling a faint vibration beneath his palm. "These aren't relics," he said, amazement coloring his voice. "They're still operational." As Terry began to examine the vessel more closely, Marcus took up a position near the hangar entrance. "I'll keep watch," he said, his eyes scanning for any sign of pursuit. Dr. Valeris, meanwhile, had discovered a computer terminal near the far wall. Her fingers danced across the alien interface, which responded to her touch with a soft glow. "This database," she called out, her voice tight with excitement. "It's a goldmine of information." As Terry worked to decipher the ship's controls, he listened to Valeris's discoveries. "The beings who built this, they called themselves the Preservers. They were an ancient race, far more advanced than we could imagine. This facility, it was used to study both humans and Romulans in our early stages of development." Terry's mind reeled at the implications. He was about to respond when Marcus's urgent whisper cut through the air. "Company, Corvus and his team have found the entrance." The distant sound of Romulan voices echoed through the facility, spurring Terry to work faster. His fingers flew over the alien controls, intuition and engineering expertise guiding him as he coaxed the ship's systems to life. Marcus sprinted to another terminal, quickly grasping its function. "I think I can slow them down," he said, manipulating the alien systems with surprising skill. Doors throughout the facility sealed shut, and dormant security measures sprang to life. As the sounds of Romulan frustration grew louder, Dr. Valeris continued her frantic analysis of the preserver data. "Terry," she called, her voice filled with a mix of awe and trepidation. "These genetic studies, they show similarities between humans and Romulans that go beyond anything we've theorized. The implications for compatibility..." Their eyes met across the hangar, an unspoken understanding passing between them. The weight of this discovery, coupled with the intensity of their shared ordeal, seemed to crystallize something that had been building since their first meeting. A loud bang echoed through the facility, followed by the sound of a door being forced open. "That's the last line of defense," Marcus warned, his voice tight with tension. Terry redoubled his efforts, sweat beading on his forehead as he wrestled with the alien technology. Just as the sound of running footsteps reached the hangar entrance, the ship's engines hummed to life. "Get in!" Terry shouted, already racing for the cockpit. Marcus and Dr. Valeris sprinted towards the ship, diving inside just as Corvus and his team burst into the hangar. The Romulan commander's eyes widened as he took in the scene, immediately grasping the significance of what he was seeing. "Capture that vessel!" Corvus roared, his disruptor already firing. Terry's hands flew over the controls, the ship responding to his commands with uncanny precision. The vessel rose smoothly, its advanced shielding easily deflecting the Romulan weapons fire. As Terry maneuvered towards the exit, the ship clipped the sides of the hangar, causing a cascade of ice and debris. The partial cave-in blocked the Romulans' pursuit, buying them precious seconds. The alien craft burst from the icy surface of Glacius XXX, climbing rapidly through the atmosphere. Terry, Marcus, and Dr. Valeris watched in stunned silence as the gas giant and its moons shrank behind them, the ship's incredible speed defying their understanding of physics. As they cleared the star system, the full magnitude of their situation began to sink in. They were fugitives in possession of technology that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The weight of that responsibility settled heavily on Terry's shoulders as he plotted a course for Federation space. But even as he did so, a new discovery caught his attention. The ship's database was revealing capabilities beyond their wildest imaginations, including the ability to traverse the vast emptiness between galaxies. Terry turned to his companions, his expression a mix of excitement and trepidation. "We have a choice to make," he began, gesturing to the ship's display. "We can return to Federation space and face the consequences of our actions, or—" He paused, the enormity of what he was about to suggest almost overwhelming him. "Or we can use this ship to journey to the Andromeda Galaxy. We could start over, free from the conflicts between humans and Romulans." The silence that followed was charged with possibility and uncertainty, but before they could fully process this new option, an alert chimed from the ship's console. Terry quickly scanned the readout, his brow furrowing in concern. "There's a complication," he announced, turning back to Marcus and Dr. Valeris. "The ship's systems are somehow tied to our genetic profiles. It needs at least 2 genetically diverse operators to function at full capacity." This revelation hung in the air, forcing Terry and Dr. Valeris to confront the growing connection between them and the possibility of a long-term commitment. The intensity of their shared gaze spoke volumes about the uncharted territory they now faced, both literally and emotionally. As the alien ship hurtled through space, its occupants found themselves at a crossroads. With Corvus likely in pursuit, Federation space still distant, and the tantalizing possibility of an intergalactic journey before them, they faced a decision that would not only determine their own fates, but potentially alter the course of both human and Romulan civilizations. The vastness of space stretched out before them, full of both promise and peril. Whatever choice they made, Terry knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The vastness of space stretched out before them, full of both promise and peril. Whatever choice they made, Terry knew that nothing would ever be the same. As he pondered their next move, a sudden burst of static from the ship's communication panel shattered the tense silence. Terry's fingers danced across the alien controls, decoding the incoming transmission. His eyes widened as he recognized the unmistakable signature of a Romulan warbird. "It's Corvus," he announced, his voice tight with urgency. "He's found a functional ship from the research station, and he's closing in fast." Dr. Valeris leaned over Terry's shoulder, her breath warm against his ear as she studied the readout. "The warbird's energy signature is fluctuating wildly," she observed. "They must have pushed their systems beyond safe limits to match our speed." Without hesitation, Terry initiated evasive maneuvers. The preserver vessel responded with breathtaking agility, effortlessly outpacing the pursuing warbird. But as Terry pushed the ship harder, he felt a growing strain, his mind struggling to process the flood of information from the alien systems. The ship lurched suddenly, its systems fluctuating erratically. Terry gritted his teeth, fighting to maintain control. "The genetic diversity requirement," he gasped. "We need a second pilot to stabilize the systems." Dr. Valeris met his gaze, her eyes filled with willpower and something deeper, unspoken. "I'll do it," she said, moving swiftly to the co-pilot's seat. As her hands touched the controls, the ship's systems surged with newfound power. Terry felt the connection immediately, their genetic profiles synchronizing with the vessel's advanced technology. The preserver craft accelerated beyond their wildest expectations, leaving the Romulan warbird far behind. As the immediate threat of capture faded, Marcus spoke up from his position at the tactical station. "We should contact the Federation," he suggested, "report our discoveries and request assistance." Terry hesitated, exchanging a look with Dr. Valeris. The weight of their recent discoveries, the preserver technology, the potential for intergalactic travel, The implications for human and Romulan relations pressed heavily on their minds. Before they could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. "Energy surge detected," Marcus shouted, his fingers flying over the sensor controls. "It's the Warbird. They've overloaded their warp core to match our speed." Terry's mind raced, calculations and possibilities flashing through his thoughts. He could see the disaster unfolding, the Romulan ship tearing itself apart in a catastrophic core breach. Despite the danger Corvus posed, Terry couldn't bring himself to abandon them to such a fate. "We have to help them," he declared, already adjusting their course. Dr. Valeris nodded, her hands moving in perfect synchronization with his as they guided the preserver vessel alongside the struggling Warbird. "Terry," she said softly, her eyes fixed on the ship's readouts, "if we can modify the preserver energy manipulation technology, we might be able to create a containment field around their warp core." Without a word, they set to work. Terry marveled at how seamlessly they functioned together, their minds and bodies in perfect harmony as they wrestled with the alien technology. A shimmering field of energy enveloped the Romulan Warbird, stabilizing its wildly fluctuating core. As the immediate crisis passed, a new transmission crackled through their communication system. Corvus's face appeared on the console, his expression a mixture of begrudging gratitude and terrifying frustration. "It seems I owe you my life, human," the Romulan commander said stiffly. "Why did you help us?" Terry leaned forward, his voice steady as he replied, "Because it was the right thing to do, Corvus, and because I believe we have much to learn from each other." What followed was a tense negotiation. Terry offered to share some of the preserver data in exchange for safe passage to the Federation border. Corvus, recognizing the value of what Terry possessed, grudgingly agreed. As the two ships traveled side by side, Terry and Dr. Valeris delved deeper into the preserver database. What they uncovered left them speechless. The genetic studies revealed similarities between humans and Romulans that went far beyond their initial findings. "This can't be," Dr. Valeris whispered, her eyes wide as she pored over the data. "The genetic markers, the shared evolutionary paths. It's as if we were designed to be compatible." Terry's mind reeled at the implications. "The preservers," he breathed. "They didn't just study us, they shaped our development. Humans, Romulans, who knows how many other species?" As they approached the Federation border, the weight of their discoveries pressed heavily upon them. The potential to reshape galactic politics, end centuries of conflict, and unlock new frontiers in medical science and genetics lay within their grasp. A new alert chimed, pulling them from their revelations. A Federation starship had appeared on their sensors, responding to their earlier distress call. The comm system crackled to life, and a stern female voice filled the cockpit. "This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the Federation starship Aventine. Unidentified vessel and Romulan Warbird, you are approaching Federation space. Explain your presence and intentions immediately." Terry exchanged a long look with Dr. Valeris, seeing his own turmoil reflected in her eyes. They stood at a crossroads, the culmination of their harrowing journey stretched out before them. Return to their societies with world-changing discoveries, or set out on an intergalactic voyage to uncover more preserver secrets. As Terry reached for the comm panel to respond to Captain Rodriguez, he felt Dr. Valeris's hand on his arm. Their eyes met, a universe of unspoken emotions passing between them. Whatever they decided, Terry knew their lives, and potentially the fate of two civilizations, would never be the same. His finger hovered over the transmit button, the moment of truth upon them. The vastness of space seemed to hold its breath, waiting for their decision that would echo across the stars. Terry's finger hovered over the transmit button for a moment longer before he pressed it firmly. "Captain Rodriguez, this is Terry Hawkins aboard the unidentified vessel. We're in a unique situation that requires careful explanation. I respectfully request a face-to-face meeting aboard the Intrepid to discuss our circumstances and share some truly remarkable discoveries." There was a pause before Captain Rodriguez's voice came through again, a note of intrigue evident in her tone. "Very well, Mr. Hawkins. I'm granting permission for you and two others to beam aboard. We'll meet in our conference room." Terry turned to Dr. Valeris and Marcus. "Dr. Valeris, you should come with me. Your scientific expertise will be crucial in explaining our findings. He then glanced at Marcus. Can you stay here and monitor the ship's systems? Marcus nodded, his expression a mix of relief and disappointment. Of course, I'll keep everything running smoothly. Terry opened a channel to the Romulan warbird. Commander Corvus, Captain Rodriguez has agreed to a meeting. Given the nature of our discoveries, I believe your presence would be valuable. Would you be willing to join us? Corvus's face appeared on the screen, his features set in a mask of careful consideration. After a moment, he inclined his head. Very well, human. I will accompany you. As they prepared to beam over, Terry felt a surge of nervous energy. He caught Dr. Valeris's eye, and she gave him a small, reassuring nod. The familiar tingle of the transporter enveloped them, and moments later, they materialized in the Intrepid's transporter room. The stark contrast between the sleek, angular design of the Federation ship and the organic, flowing lines of the preserver vessel was immediately apparent. Terry blinked, his eyes adjusting to the brighter lighting. Beside him, Dr. Valeris stood tall, her posture rigid but her eyes darting around, taking in every detail. Corvus stepped off the transporter pad last, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood before them, her dark eyes sharp and assessing. Welcome aboard the Intrepid. If you'll follow me, we can speak more freely in the conference room. As they walked through the corridors, Terry couldn't help but notice the curious glances from the crew. The sight of a human, a Romulan scientist, and a Romulan military officer walking side by side without any signs of hostility was clearly not an everyday occurrence. Once in the conference room, Terry began recounting their journey. He explained the initial misunderstanding that led to his capture, the daring escape from Corvus's ship, and the discovery of the preserver outpost. As he spoke, he could see Captain Rodriguez's expression shifting from skepticism to fascination. Dr. Valeris interjected periodically, her voice calm and measured as she elaborated on the scientific aspects of their discoveries. The preserver technology we encountered is centuries, perhaps millennia, beyond our current understanding. Their ability to manipulate energy and matter at a subatomic level is truly astonishing. To Terry's surprise, Corvus began to contribute to the narrative. The Romulan commander's voice was gruff but sincere as he corroborated their account. I must admit, Captain, my perspective has shifted during this ordeal. The human speaks the truth. Captain Rodriguez leaned forward, her elbows on the table. This is all quite extraordinary, but you mentioned discoveries that could reshape our understanding of galactic history. What exactly did you find? Terry and Dr. Valeris exchanged a glance. It was the Romulan scientist who spoke, her voice steady but tinged with awe. We uncovered evidence of a genetic link between humans and Romulans, as well as other species in the galaxy. The preservers didn't just study us, they shaped our evolution. The room fell silent as the implications of this revelation sank in. Captain Rodriguez's eyes widened, and even Corvus seemed stunned by the information, despite having heard it before. After a moment, Captain Rodriguez stood. This changes everything. I need to contact Starfleet Command immediately. She moved to a communications panel on the wall. Lieutenant, establish a secure channel to Starfleet headquarters on Earth. Priority 1. As they waited for the transmission to be set up, Terry found his gaze drawn to Dr. Valeris. The Romulan scientist stood near the viewport, her profile silhouetted against the stars. She turned, meeting his eyes, and Terry felt a surge of emotion. The depth of their connection, forged through their shared ordeal and discoveries, was palpable. Captain Rodriguez, returning to the table, noticed their interaction. Her expression softened slightly, a flicker of understanding passing across her features. Corvus, too, observed the unspoken communication between Terry and Dr. Valeris. The Romulan commander's face was a study in conflicting emotions, respect, confusion, and a hint of something that might have been envy. The room's lighting dimmed as a holographic projection flickered to life. Admiral Bell's image appeared, his bushy eyebrows rising as he took in the eclectic group assembled in the conference room. Captain Rodriguez, the Admiral's deep voice filled the room. I understand you have an urgent report. What's the nature of this gathering. As Captain Rodriguez began to brief the Admiral, Terry felt the weight of the decision looming before him and Dr. Valeris. Return with their discoveries and potentially reshape the political landscape of the galaxy? Or venture into the unknown, seeking more preserver secrets among the stars of Andromeda? Admiral Bell's gaze settled on Terry and Dr. Valeris as Captain Rodriguez concluded her report. Mr. Hawkins, Dr. Valeris, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this situation. What do you propose we do with this preserver vessel and the knowledge you've uncovered? Terry stepped forward, acutely aware of all eyes upon him. He glanced at Dr. Valeris, seeing his own mix of excitement and trepidation mirrored in her eyes. As he opened his mouth to speak, the future of human-Romulan relations, the secrets of the preservers, and the potential for a journey beyond the boundaries of the known galaxy hung in the balance. Balance hung in the air. Terry took a deep breath, his eyes meeting Dr. Valeris's one last time before he began to speak. Admiral, Captain, what we've discovered goes beyond anything we could have imagined, Terry said, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. The preserver technology we encountered is centuries, perhaps millennia, beyond our current understanding. Their ability to manipulate energy and matter at a subatomic level is truly astonishing. Dr. Valeris stepped forward, her voice calm as she added, more importantly, we've uncovered evidence of a genetic link between humans and Romulans, as well as other species in the galaxy. The preservers didn't just study us, they shaped our evolution. As Terry and Dr. Valeris took turns explaining their discoveries, their seamless collaboration was evident to all present. The room fell silent as the implications of their words sank in. Suddenly, the Intrepid shuddered violently. Red alert klaxons blared, their harsh sound filling the conference room. The ship's computer announced in its calm, artificial voice, "Warning, massive energy surge detected. Unknown origin. Brace for impact." Captain Rodriguez sprang into action. "We need to get to the bridge. Now." They rushed out of the conference room, with Terry, Dr. Valeris, and Corvus close behind. As they entered the bridge, the main view screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that left them all speechless. A colossal ship materialized before them, dwarfing both the Intrepid and Corvus's warbird. Its design was unmistakably preserver, with sleek organic lines that seemed to defy the laws of physics. "My God," Captain Rodriguez whispered, her eyes wide with awe. Before anyone could react further, a beam of energy engulfed all three vessels. Terry felt a familiar tingling sensation, reminiscent of a transporter beam, but far more intense. The bridge of the Intrepid dissolved around them, replaced by a vast circular chamber, unlike anything they had ever seen. Holographic projections surrounded them, depicting various alien species. Terry recognized ancient humans and Romulans among them, their features both familiar and strange. The air hummed with energy, and a voice resonated throughout the chamber, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Welcome, children of the stars," the voice said, its tone neither male nor female, yet somehow comforting. "We are the culmination of preserver knowledge and consciousness. You stand at the threshold of a new era." Terry and Dr. Valeris exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of wonder and trepidation. Corvus stood rigid, his hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Captain Rodriguez and Admiral Bell's hologram looked on in stunned silence. The entity continued. "Terry Hawkins and Dr. Valeris, your unique bond has triggered a long-dormant protocol. Your cooperation, despite your different origins, demonstrates the potential for harmony among the galaxy's species, the ultimate goal of our grand experiment." The chamber shifted, holographic displays showing the history of the preserver's work across the galaxy. Terry watched in awe as millennia of genetic manipulation and subtle guidance unfolded before his eyes. "We offer you a choice," the entity said, its voice filled with both power and compassion. "You may return to your societies with the knowledge you've gained, or join us on an intergalactic journey to continue our work in harmonizing diverse species across the universe." The weight of the decision pressed down on Terry and Dr. Valeris. They turned to face each other, volumes passing between them in a single look. In that moment, Terry saw their shared experiences flash before his eyes. Their initial mistrust, the dangers they'd faced together, and the profound connection they'd forged. Dr. Valeris spoke first, her voice soft but firm. "We have to go back. Our people need this knowledge, need to understand what we've learned." Terry nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and drive. He turned to address the preserver entity. "We choose to return. The bond we've formed, the knowledge we've gained, it could be the key to fostering peace between humans and Romulans. We can't abandon our civilizations when we have the power to bring about real change." The entity's response was tinged with approval. "A wise choice. You shall return as our ambassadors, carrying the seeds of harmony to your peoples." A smaller preserver vessel materialized in the chamber, its design similar to the one Terry and Dr. Valeris had piloted earlier. The entity explained, "This ship is our gift to you, along with a database containing carefully curated information, enough to promote cooperation without disrupting the natural development of your civilizations." The entity paused, and Terry felt a strange sensation wash over him. He glanced at Dr. Valeris, seeing her experience the same feeling. "As a final gift," the entity said, "we have made you genetically compatible. Should you choose, you may truly bridge the gap between your species." Terry's heart raced at the implications, his eyes meeting Dr. Valeris's. The connection between them, already profound, now held the promise of something even deeper. The chamber began to fade, and Terry felt the familiar sensation of transport. As they rematerialized on their respective ships, the entity's voice echoed one last time. "We will return when humanity and the Romulans have achieved true harmony, ready to welcome you into a larger galactic community. Until then, may your journey be one of discovery and peace." As the massive preserver ship disappeared into the vastness of space, Terry found himself back on the bridge of the Intrepid. Captain Rodriguez immediately began issuing orders, her voice steady despite the extraordinary events they had just experienced. "Stand down, red alert. Mr. Hawkins, Dr. Valeris, I believe we have much to discuss regarding your new ambassadorial roles." Terry nodded, his mind already racing with the possibilities and challenges that lay ahead. He glanced at Dr. Valeris, seeing his own mix of excitement and trepidation mirrored in her eyes. As they prepared to chart a course for a future none of them could have imagined, Terry knew that their journey was just the beginning. In fact, it was just beginning.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.